do stand up and online creation. What got you started, and why specifically stand up?
Well, whenever I started getting up on stage, put it like that, it was when I was doing performance poetry. It was being very deep in my youth, and there was a couple of performance poetry groups around Belfast, and I just sort of liked the vibe of that and seeing, the person who's written the thing speak it, and I find that quite alluring. So I started doing that myself, and then over time, I started to do slightly funnier poems. And then the poems sort of got shorter, and it was just more the introduction of the poems kept me going.
Hmm.
And eventually it was like, right, well, it's not really about the poems now, is it? It's just more that you like stand in front of people and talking. So it sort of developed from there, and then started doing my own night in the same venue, Voice Box Comedy back in the day in Safe House Art Gallery, which is now gone. Um, and it just sort of it came from there. That's where it all started. And just realized like, no, I actually just like getting up on stage in front of people more than the actual deep deep art of poems.
I mean, to be fair, you have to actually have to have a big bit of confidence doing stand up, especially when you're talking and interacting with the crowd. Have you always had that level of confidence, or has that been something you've had to build up?
The main issue was forgetting what you were saying, and if you have a big long story, you have a series of jokes. If you miss one of them out, it sort of throws you off your rhythm. And I had that for a while, and that was the main fear. It was, of course, there was getting up in front of people, but I found after doing that for a couple of months, that sort of goes away. It is just more. I want to make sure I'm saying everything that I'm supposed to be saying, and yeah, no, and eventually that goes as well. It's like if I get up on stage now, I have an idea of what to talk about and certain stories that I want to tell with certain lines in it, but how I get there doesn't really matter as much as long as I hit those points. And there's people that I know that do sets verbatim, that do jokes verbatim, they make sure at every word because it's important to the way that they tell the joke or that's what they find comfort in. With me, I'm just more like, I want to tell this story and hit these points, and I don't really care how I get there, even necessarily how it goes. Because if it goes well, that's great. If it goes badly, that can throw you as well, but it also, if you wanna look at it, like, in a super positive way, sort of opens up a challenge to you where you're like, "Right, well, that didn't go well. I wonder what they would like."
Mm.
Or you can just talk to the audience or comment on it, maybe not hitting as much as you wanted and see what that brings you.
I feel like I'm going to get cyberbullied IRL, which is to say bullied. And I have been cyberbullied. I remember one time I was playing Call of Duty, and someone on my team thought I was doing badly enough that they would send me a message, and they said to me, "Go back to Minecraft." And that really hurts because I'm shite at Minecraft as well.
When you lay out your sets, how often do you change that? Like changing in jokes here and there.
Like, it's like you say sets, the idea to me of, like, doing a set, saying someone saying, "Look, you 10 minutes, or 15 minutes," or whatever it is to get up and do your bit. Again, I'll have a vague notion of what stories I want to tell. I won't always tell them in the same order, and I won't always approach it in the same way. And it might bounce off if an act earlier in the evening has said something, I go, "God, that reminds me of a story of something that happened to me." I'll talk about that when I'm up because that's a
Mm.
nice end to that story. Say, Jeff was talking about going through car washes. That reminds me of a story, blah, 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 blah. And that's your sort of easy in. So it shows, like you've been paying attention, the audience. If they've been paying attention, they go, "Oh, yeah, Jeff did say that." It's a nice, easy in that way. Um, but in terms of like sitting going, right, this is my 10 minute, this is this and that. I have a couple of stories when you put them together, they roughly add up to 10 minutes, and I'll just see how it goes. And I think part of that comes from doing improv comedy as well, short form and long form, where you don't know what you're going to say. You get a suggestion from the crowd, and you just sort of go with it. And I find that helped me on stage, through doing stand up and other things, where it's like it doesn't need to be necessarily set in stone, so long as you sort of get to where you want to go, and if it's funny along the way, perfect. But I've used it for that, and clowning as well. I've done some like physical clowning classes and stuff like that. There are red noses, but it's not like throwing buckets of glitter. It's just more sort of exploring like your place on the stage, how you're being perceived, how every and similar to improv as well, how every action and look that you do is obviously going to be interpreted by the audience. Now, that's not to say I'm mindful of that every time I get on stage, but they're all sort of tools that you can use when you're on stage for whatever reason to go, right, well, what are the points that I want to make and what's the energy that I want to give out there?
Mm.
And amongst all that, what's the story that I'm going to tell? And most importantly, what's the actual funny part? What's the part I want to emphasize that people will actually laugh from? Because having a stage presence and making sure that people understand what you're saying is great, but you're not always necessarily, giving a talk. You're there to make people laugh as well. So it's a whole mixture of things that all come together. And of course, I never really stick to one the whole time. I'll do something very, very intensely for a while and be like, I'm really, really into me improv right now, really, really in, and then I will just drop it and be like, nah, I'm gonna go back to stand up for a while. So I don't know what that is. Maybe get that psychoanalyzed. Maybe it's fear of failure, rejection, or maybe fear of success if it's stuck with one thing for long enough. But yeah, no, I sort of creatively get a bit fidgety and then go, no, I want to do this now.
Have you got any inspirations though? Anything you've picked up to like blend to make your kind of style in the scene?
It's interesting because there's stuff that I really like, and there is stuff I would have maybe aspired to when I was younger, but wouldn't necessarily take inspiration from now. And that's not me saying no, no one inspires me. I'm very much my own person, and I'm my own creative genius. Um, I'm always sort of retrospectively looking back, which is what retrospective means. Um, but stuff like I was always a big fan of Vic Reeves and Bob Mortimer, and they had quite a lot of silly humor and a lot of physical humor, as well as Rich and Eddie and from Bottom and the Young Ones and all that. It's all that sort of stuff. And looking back on it, it's like in the comedy that I do, it isn't massively physical. It's all very larger than life and very physical, which I wouldn't necessarily be on stage. I might be a bit loud um, and a bit angry, but it's sort of again, it flits in between what sort of mood I'm in. Like there's bits of sets and jokes that I know are best told in a certain way.
Mm.
And when you mix two different bits of jokes or sets together, you go, well, I'm normally quite sort of quiet for this one, and then I'm quite loud for that. And then it's figuring out the bridge in between those two. Because if you go from 0 to 100, yes, that can be funny, but it can also be a bit sort of confusing.
Yeah.
It's like, well, why the jump all of a sudden between this and that? I also quite like Dylan Moran in terms of like stand up. Years ago, growing up and sort of when I first started doing comedy, I quite liked his shows and his specials or whatever you want to call them, as well as stuff like Black Books as well, which he was in. And yeah, I mean it's hard for me now to watch a lot of comedy. And people would say, "Oh, it's because you don't want to like get inspired or see something that you might have thought yourself." And you go, "Well, I can't do that anymore." It's not so much that; it's just it's a mixture of things where I'm maybe afraid to look at comedy too much, and you examine it that much, and you go, "Well, I'm never gonna be as good as that person. I'm never gonna do that." You sort of take inspiration from that. It for me, it doesn't get there. I don't get to the point of inspiration. I will get to the point of abject despair and going, "No, I'm actually shite, so I'll not do that." Which is strange because then you can end up in a sort of just microcosm of all the people around you that you see and yourself as well. So it's interesting, and it begs the question: then why do it if you're not inspired to do it? I don't really know. I don't know.
I mean, since being back, is there a certain venue that you like to perform in?
Well, I do a few of the shows in the Black Box in Belfast. There's afternoon comedy there, more or less every Saturday. And there's different. I was going to say different nights, different afternoons, with different formats. So some of them will be like brand new people or fairly new people doing very short sets in quick succession. There'll be other ones where there's new and established acts who have to do brand new stuff. There's um, an inclusive comedy night, Coven comedy night, which is LGBTQ plus lineup every month. So those would be the ones. Plus, it's in the afternoon and it's on a weekend, so you're not interfering with work. You don't have to stay out all night. You can go out and have a couple of drinks and get home in time for like 7, 8 o'clock, which is great, especially when you're in your 30s. You're just like, this is perfect. Perfect excuse to day drink as well
Sure.
on an
Yeah.
afternoon. Just jump on the bus and go home. So that's mainly what I've been doing the last wee while since I've been back, and it's always nice because it's a small enough room, and the stage is like an inch raised platform at the back of the room, so you can see everyone. You're very very close to the audience, and I like that. I like it when you can see people. There's nothing worse than being on stage and not being able to see. It's fine if you can hear them laugh, but I like to see their faces. I like to have a good look at them.
You got to engage with them as
Um,
well. I see how they're taking it too.
yeah, it's to make that connection.
Yeah.
Which is nice. I like that, and I like having a chat with people too. Um, I much prefer MCing, so it'll be hosting and bringing people on and off, and in between acts, you can have that chat with the audience, and you can announce stuff. Like I've always preferred hosting because you're sort of like, well, you are the host, you're the maitre d' of the day, so you can have a chat with people and explain everything that's going to happen. And it has the added responsibility of you need to make sure that the show's going grand. So
Mm.
if someone gets up and maybe they don't perform as well as they normally would, and you know, not absolutely eat shit, but you're just sort of like, right, we need to sort of keep the energy going. So that's your call to jump in and be like, here, did you hear what happened the other day? And sort of keep it going. I like that because there's an ongoing task at hand. Whereas if you do your set, you get up, you do it. If it went well, it went well. If it didn't, it didn't. And then that's you done. That's you out of there. Whereas the MC sort of keeps everything nicely ticking over. Um, so that's what I would enjoy more than doing a set. But I'll not say no to any sets going. If anyone's out there,
So not only do you do little comedy gigs here and there, you also have a TikTok series, and that's where I found you from. Uh, is your little let's go places, tell you the admission and
Mhm,
make it look better than actually what it is. You can make a park look actually fucking interesting.
mhm.
Where where has been your favorite spot that you've went in that little series?
Um, quite like just because I do like it. Uh, the the Ulster Folk Museum, um, because it is very much, and props to the folks over there. It is like stepping back through time, because there is plenty to see. And I remember one time I went, um, my wife and I went, and it was a very hot day, and I think we both got a touch of heat stroke. So we were very disaffected wandering around, and I think it got to the point where we actually weren't sure what was reality and what wasn't, because we were like just spaced out from the heat. And that was very immersive. I recommend that. But I just quite like that because you can wander into the wee houses and be like, oh look how small people used to be. Have to bend down to get in here. Um, and just generally, it's sort of like a great conservation thing that they do. Um, I would love to get sponsored by um the Northern Ireland Museum people or the city council, just to sort of say to people, use the bins, don't throw rubbish. Like it is the easiest thing in the world not to throw rubbish on the ground, and there's never an excuse for littering. There's no emergency scenario that you can think of that's like, actually, the littering was all right, and we can let them away with it. There's just never any excuse. So I would love to be sponsored by just some sort of civil authority related thing, just to do like a series of videos of basically just how to be like a decent human and not do these sorts of things. And it's a mundanity of the places, like, well, the Ulster Folk Museum's pretty good, but like other places just like a random park and this and that. It's like there is fun and there's interesting things to have in how mundane things are. Not everything needs to be exciting or an aspirational visit to this place, which is what sort of got me on to doing them specifically on TikTok. Like I've been doing daft videos for years and years and years, but I was just sitting watching TikTok and seeing people go to all these like glamping pods and all these like exclusive like access to these like bars or clubs and all this, and just like manufacturing this fake life of um luxury. And you're just like, why would I look at that and go, "Oh, I feel terrible now." I didn't feel terrible. I just looked and go, "There's absolutely nothing to interest me there." But the effect on a lot of people is, "Oh, I wish I was at this. I wish I was on a plane to Dubai, and all this." And you're like, "No, there's interesting things to be had around you." I'm not saying everything around you is full of wonder and joy and everything's great, but sometimes you can't beat just going to a really good Centra and having a look at the deli or whatever it is and just enjoying that. Like, there's plenty of horrible stuff you could be doing, but the fact that you can walk into a shop or walk around a really, really crap tiny park with nothing in it, at least it's there. What was there before might have been a dump or a rally track for the local hoodlums. Like, it's nice to have things even if they don't, blow your socks off. It's nice to be able to go and do these things. Um, I just don't get those aspirational "look what I did" videos because I'm brilliant or I have money or I don't have money, but I I like to pretend that I have money so that you think I have money. I just don't get that flexing lifestyle. It just it just seems strange. It seems strange and unnatural and a wee bit sad. Um But I mean, that's part of a larger discussion about social media and all that. But I don't know. The popularity contest ended for me. Whenever you leave school, I don't understand why it has to persist. And you're never really sure that's the person that you're looking at. You're just sort of like, are you like this all the time? Because if you are, you're fucking insufferable. Like that would be hard to put up with. I don't know how you might put up with it yourself. So I choose to believe that none of it's real and that people are lying in an effort to make other people feel bad, and I think that's wrong. I think you should just sometimes just go for a wee walk and look at something that's a bit shit and be like, "This is all right. I'm happy enough with this." I don't think that's a big ask of life, but people will argue with me and go, "That's boring," or "This is like watching paint dry," and you're like, "Well, you know, that's just that." Away and look at I don't know what, some fella windsurfing upside down in Australia, which you'll never be able to afford to go to yourself. How does that make you feel?
I never knew there was so much context and lore behind the little series, but when you put it in that light, it makes so much fucking sense. Like it makes it way more grand than I would ever even think. The whole concept of, but we've got stuff in our backyard, but like, you make do with what you have. And it's like way more deeper than I thought it was, but I genuinely love that. Um, did you have that concept like going into it, or did that kind of form as you went along?
It was definitely as it went along. I remember there was a couple of short ones that I did. The first one, I think, for real in that style, if you will, in that oeuvre that I have created myself, was the big fish down at the Lagan.
Yeah,
Because I'd seen videos like that and like people explaining, the lore of the salmon and knowledge. Quite a lot of it actually incorrect, but let's not worry about that, eh? Um, so it did one of me just looking at the big fish, but it contained like absolutely zero facts or details. I didn't claim to have facts. It was just this like pointless video of a fella going up to the fish and trying to talk to it as if it's real. And then even at the end of the video, I say something like, "Anyway, that was me looking at the big fish. I'm not really sure why I made this video, to be honest. Right, bye." And it's just sort of like, for me, that was me seeing those sorts of videos, and at the end being like, "I'm not sure why I watched this because it contained nothing, not nothing of value, but nothing that the video seemed to set out to do." So I was
sure.
like, right, well, I'm just going to make this completely irrelevant video about the big fish, as if there isn't already hundreds of them. Um, and then after that, I went to the Ulster Museum. And I like going to museums. I'm sorry, it doesn't seem to be an exciting thing to do. Um, but well worth going to, especially because the Ulster Museum has the mummy Takabuti, who's well worth looking into. Wonderful story in there. Anytime I've free time and near the Ulster Museum, you always go and have we say hello to Takabuti. So I did a video of that, and that was more sort of like lifestyley, sort of, hey guys, I'm here at the Ulster Museum. Wow, look at all this stuff. Yeah, and you can see dinosaurs, and they're not really dinosaurs, and all this and that. And it's just sort of like fake travel vlog type stuff of like, here's something that you can do. Yeah. Admission is free to that. And then over time, I was like, well, I don't want to get caught in accidentally becoming a funny version of or whatever. I always dislike referring to yourself as funny. An amusing or an entertaining version of that, but I've accidentally become one of them. So if I would go to say, I've had a few companies and businesses ask me to go to their place, and they're like, "Oh well, you can come and do a video of this, and admission is free for you because you're doing a video and will not make you pay in, obviously, and all this." So I don't want to go to one of these places and be like, "Hey guys, today I went to such and such. Admission is £50, but I got in for free because they asked me to do a video about it." And then you're becoming one of the people that I was talking about earlier on,
Sure.
but it's slightly entertaining. I don't really want to do that. I want the emphasis, if there is any, to be, as you said earlier on, there's stuff on your back doorstep that costs it's either cheap or nothing
Mhm.
that you can just go and have a look at and have fun with and experience. I'm always very wary of going to a thing and it being slightly pricier and then people being like, well, admission wasn't free. It was, 30, 40, 50 quid to do whatever it is that you're doing. I'm like, yeah, it's sort of, but then maybe that's in my head. I don't know. But I think that the point is you can just go to things and have an all right time and it's grand. You don't need to feel bad about yourself.
Yeah. Do you have anything else in the next couple of weeks that you'd like to announce and say to end it
Uh,
off?
um, just the show on the 31st of March. I'm doing other gigs in and around Belfast. You can check me out on at Marcus Keeley on Twitter and have a Facebook page for any mums out there still using Facebook. You can check me out there. And I'm on Instagram as well. Don't really use Instagram, but people follow me on there for zero content. So you can do that as well. But I'm on Twitter and Twitch, of course, at Marcus Keeley, where I stream at least once a week. I always stream on a Friday night at 10 p.m. Friday Fun, where we sit and talk rubbish, play Jackbox games. We can pretend it's still the pandemic and watch videos and just talk a load of rubbish. Have a wee drink or two, and it's sort of party atmosphere every Friday. And then at various other points throughout the week when I'm free and available. But Friday nights I'm always on, except if I'm doing a game. Look, just check out Twitter. You'll know then.